All right, welcome again to Back to School Night 2021 for the Falcon class of 2025. Again, I'm Mr. Monahan, the 8th grade dean this year. Should you need it to hop on to an interpretation line for the folks who speak Spanish, the information is here. You can go ahead and call that phone number and give that meeting ID. And I'm going to go ahead and drop that meeting ID into the chat. So we do have two pretty helpful links as well. As we're going through the session, if you have any questions, we have a parking lot that I'll be posting in the chat in a second. And I also want to plug our Back to School website. This is going to be a great website for all information on Back to School Week, but also some really great information about tech, where students can access information to solve a lot of the problems that we're all kind of working through right now. I've already pressed record, but thank you, past version of myself, for the reminder. Here's our agenda for the night. We're going to have a scavenger hunt for 5 minutes. Then we'll go through some teacher introductions. Mr. Menduke, our Associate School Director of Instruction, will provide a note on the state of our community. We'll talk through some tips and tricks and questions that parents should ask to help the class of 2025, parents and guardians, to help students ask students to be successful in 8th grade. And we'll close our session out with 15 minutes of Q&A. So we're going to have a little bit of fun here, having a scavenger hunt. We like to do stuff like this with students to get them up and moving around throughout the day. And so the objective is as such. Can I please have Ms. Sulsky come off mute and read our objective?
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Sulsky. Nice to meet you. So our objective is to find as many of these items as you can in the next 3 minutes. A baby photo of your scholar, something that connects your whole family, an object that represents a school you once attended, something falcon orange, an ingredient used in a recipe that your family loves.
Thank you, Ms. Sulsky. I'm going to press go, and then when we come back, we'll have maybe one person for each object share out the thing that they brought back. 3 minutes are on the clock. Good luck.
Where are you? Damn, this is.
One minute warning. That's a 1-minute warning. A cool 12 seconds to come back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. Welcome back, Falcons. Go ahead and unshare the screen. That way we can see each other. Wow, everybody's got some wonderful things. As you can see, I'm wearing my Falcon orange hat. And who's that little baby with a full head of hair? That's me in 8th grade. Wonderful. Is anybody willing to share a picture of their scholar? Use the hand raise feature to be called on. Scholars, okay. I saw the first one. I saw a lot. That's great. I have to go with the parents or guardians of Matthew Stoffel, and I hope I pronounced your last name correctly, but that was the first hand I saw. Go ahead and come up.
This is a picture of Matthew, very young, on one side being Christmas, and on the other side is also Christmas.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I bet Matthew just loves that you did that.
And he was huge, huge.
Hey, Mr. Monahan, I think there's a few people in your advisory that thought that that was the main event, so I think we got to redirect them over here.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Mr. Leva, did you say that there are some folks in my advisory chat right now?
Yes, they're on the call right
now. Okay. If you could, I think you have presentation capabilities. Would you mind just letting them in? So everybody else, let's go ahead and raise our hands down. And I'm going to go again with the first hand that I see. So I need the parents of, or guardians of Hayden Dreschler, Schwinghammers, and Randalls. Please lower your hands real quick. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go with something that connects your whole family. Hands up. Okay, the parents or guardians of the last name Cortina. Go ahead and unmute, and then you will be in the center of the screen.
So something that connects to our family. I'm the mother of Aitana Cortina. It's food, and this is a loaf of bread that we love to share.
What kind of bread is that?
Sourdough.
Oh,
yeah.
Very good.
Freshly
Let's
made.
get our hands down again. And let's go with an object that represents a school you once attended. Parents or guardians of Alexander Browning, please go ahead and unmute and let's see what you got.
Hello. I happen to be wearing a t-shirt from Corey Elementary School, which is where Bryson and Xander went to school before Byers.
Fun story is I got caught in a rainstorm on a bicycle ride, and the awning of Corey Elementary kept me dry. So thank you so much.
Happy to pay it forward there.
Let's get hands up for something Falcon orange. Parents or guardians of L. Garner, please.
Okay, so I just grabbed the Falcon gym shirt.
Oh, it's blurry.
Thank you, and I hope we're running around in those Falcon Orange gym shirts sooner than later. And this is my favorite one we've got here. So let's get hands up for an ingredient used in a recipe that your family loves. All right, let's go with the parents or guardians of the Gilbertsons.
Hi. We've got chocolate chips for chocolate chip pancakes, one of our all-time favorites. And they're really good to snack on tonight, too.
Yeah, I can't even keep those in my house. It's a problem. Thanks so much, families. That was really fun to get to see everybody, and we'll move on with it. Do some staff intros now, and staff, we're just going to go in the order in which you show up, going up to down, left to right. So take it away, Mrs. Sulsky.
Hi, everyone. I'm talking on mute. Mr. Monahan, are we also doing shout outs right now or just introducing ourselves?
Yeah, thank you for that process question. Yes, if you want to take it away in that sense.
Alrighty. Hi, I'm Ann Solsky. I'm the leader of the Stanford Advisory. I teach 8th grade literacy and am co-teaching social studies with Mr. Leva. My shout out today is for Melissa. She's in homeroom 4. And Melissa, I just really appreciate how you're always on top of it. Your camera is on. You make me feel welcomed in my own classroom. And you might be the best email communicator I've ever corresponded with. Thank you so much. It is a joy to be your teacher. Shout out to Melissa. And I'm also going to introduce real quick Elise Tidwell, or Victoria Tidwell. She's not able to join tonight, but Elise also teaches 8th grade literacy. And she's the leader of, I'm blanking on her
Greyhound.
Greyhound. She's the leader of the Greyhounds. So I know she loves and welcomes family communication and is extremely responsive via email. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Mr. Leva, take it away.
Hi, everyone. To my families, I'm pretty sure I gave you the wrong link, so I apologize for that. But I am Mr. Leva. I teach U.S. history with Ms. Solsky, and I am the leader of the MSU Roadrunners Advisory. And my shout out is for Alex Barr. He is always on task. He's always doing his work. And in advisory, he always has his camera on. It makes me feel like I'm talking to a person, not just the wall. So I just want to give you a shout out for that, Alex. Good job. And I'll pass it along to Mr. Millman.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Mr. Millman. I am the 8th grade science teacher, one of the 8th grade science teachers, and I'm also the advisor of the Old Dominion University Monarchs. Really great to see everybody here. I have a quick shout out, and I'm not sure if they're on the call, but my shout out is for Colton Robinson. I talked to Colton last year. I teach him again this year. I was really excited to see him on my roster. So far this year, he's been answering questions. He's been responding thoughtfully in the Paradex and on mastery checks and in Edulastic. So excellent work, Colton. I'm really honored to get to teach you 2 years in a row. Mr. Levy, you kind of bounced around here, so I'm going to get us back on track, passing it over to Miss Anderson in the math department.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Kendall Anderson. My dog wanted to cuddle, so that's why he is joining us as well. I am one of the 8th grade math teachers. This is my 3rd year at Byers. And I have a shout out for Aiden Levi. Aiden, I just really appreciate all of your participation and having your camera on. I think it's hilarious. You love to like sing along to songs sometimes, and I don't know if you always know, but like it's awesome. So keep it up. Keep up the collaboration, and you're just doing a great job. Mr. Bolo, you're up next.
Hey Falcons, my name is Mr. Bolo and Steve Bollinger, and this is my 13th year as a teacher. I was a founding Byers teacher back in 2013. Love our community. I've had a chance to teach every grade level, and I love our math class. My shout out is going to go to Haley Poulis, who reached out earlier this week and was like missed some questions on a mastery check last week and was like, hey, can we find some time to go over this? And I just like love that level of advocacy. You don't see that a lot from middle schoolers. And so I'm hoping that is going to just bring a lot to our class, and like our other students jump on that same train. So Haley, thank you so much for like just advocating for your learning. I really appreciate you. And I'll bounce it to Miss Sparks.
Hi everyone, my name is Mrs. Sparks. I was Miss McCabe last year, so I may have taught your student digital arts last year. We're back here in 8th grade though, and I have a shout out for Emily Dolan. Emily is such a joy in class, and she's always just like first hand up, ready to share out, asking great questions, and I love your curiosity. Keep it up. Miss Larson, would you take it away?
Hi, I'm Katie Larson, and this is my first year at DSST. I come from the Denver Public Schools teaching middle school, and I'm so happy to be here. I am the leader of the Torero Advisory, and I'm proud of us. I'd like to shout out Lucas Ritana. This last couple of weeks, he has been going above and beyond to get all of his work turned in, and I'm very impressed with him. And I will turn it over now to Mr. Kareem Khalil.
I'm not sure if he's in, but Mr. Weatherall is.
I definitely am here and would love to introduce myself. I'm Mr. Weatherall, or Jordan Weatherall. I am a 8th grade special education teacher. And this is my first year at Byers. I have loved it so far. And one of the reasons why I've loved it so far is actually because of my shout out. I want to shout out Gabby Reidenauer, who has also gone above and beyond, is always ready to unmute herself. And every single time that she shares out, she adds to the class discussion in a way that would not be possible unless she spoke. Her voice is really wonderful and powerful, and I'm super proud of how you've been learning this year, Gabby. I'm going to throw it over to Mr. Bruce.
I don't know that Mr. Bruce is on our call, but for the record, Mr. Bruce is one of our special education instructors. He also runs with the West Texas program. Mr. Khalil is a joint advisor with Mr. Weatherall, and he is also one of our DCIs. Also included in our team, we have Mr. Nate Avis. He's a paraprofessional. Miss Jessica Altschuler, who's our social worker. Miss Chelsea Price, who is our ELD instructor. Currently on the call, we have Mr. Stephen Menduke, who is our Associate School Director of Instruction. Mr. Menduke, are you there? You want to say hi?
Sure. I am super happy to be here with the 8th grade team. Excited to get to talk about the best update that we could possibly give with the lack of information that we have, and I'll do that in just a minute for us here. But I am in my 2nd year here at Byers. I, like Dan Monahan said, I'm our Associate School Director of Instruction. So I will be really the one to direct any of those curriculum questions to, or instructional questions to, and I'll make sure I share my email at the end of this call today. My shout out is for Sebastian Gutierrez. Every time I'm in an 8th grade class, he brings just so much joy into the chat. He was brave enough today to admit that he loved Under the Sea in Miss McCabe's class, which is just a fantastic song. So thank you, Sebastian, for just bringing so much joy to all of the classes that you're in.
And before we turn into our next part of this session, again, I'm Mr. Monahan. I am the dean this year. It's my first year at Byers, 4th month in Denver. I would like to shout out Ramadan Abu, who just makes me so happy every single day. He does a really great job of balancing humor and seriousness in his classes, and he keeps it super joyful. And he's always helping his peers out, like always with like anybody who says, I don't have the link, I don't know where I'm supposed to be. He has the link and he has where you're supposed to be. So shout out to Ramadan. I'm gonna go ahead and share the screen and we'll get back into our deck. I do want to name that we're running a little bit behind time. I do want to cut us off at 6:45. I want to respect everybody's time. So we're gonna try and be kind of quick through some of the next, through our presentations. And kicking it over to Mr. Menduk. Mr. Menduk, am I sharing my screen right now?
You are, but it is the list of links if you want to pull up the slide deck.
Welcome everyone to eSchool.
Precisely. Just about there, I promise.
This is what we do daily with your kids.
Great. All right. Thank you, Mr. Monahan, for executing on that plan to build anticipation. You nailed it. And we're going to jump right in. Like I said, I am Stephen Menduk. I am one of our associate school directors, the one specifically in charge of instruction. Really just honored and excited to be able to join this team specifically tonight and chat with some of our families here. So I definitely want to start by grounding us in our mission. DSST Byers is a welcoming community where all people are known and valued. Students have the opportunity to explore their identities academically, personally, and socially. Together, we work to cultivate relationships and support each other to be our best. Our graduates have the opportunity to pursue their aspirations and positively impact the world. This is something that really grounds us. Every decision that we make, we aim to try to meet this mission, and it's an extremely high bar, but one that our team, and specifically this 8th grade team, does a really good job of holding true and keeping at the center of our daily responsibilities and activities. This year, what this looks like specifically is our commitment to being an anti-racist community at Byers. Mr. Monahan, if you just want to click through all of them on this slide, and I could just kind of talk about them together. So there's a few pieces here when we think about being this anti-racist community at Byers. We want to make sure that we're connecting to our individual why. We want to make sure that we're having hard conversations, and we want to make sure that we're tying in families. I could guarantee every family in this call and every educator in this call that we will make mistakes on this path to becoming an anti-racist community. So we will not be perfect. And we also know that we're going to be asking for a ton of feedback from people on this call, teachers and families and students alike, to make sure that we get to a place where we are approaching where we want to be and achieving this aspiration of being an anti-racist community at Byers. Without the families on this call, we will not have an inclusive community, and that's one thing that we can say for sure. So there's a few ways that you can help us not only towards this mission of being an anti-racist community, but really just help us as a campus to continue to thrive and kind of build on the legacy that we've worked really hard to create here at Byers. I think the first one, taking our community input survey, which is on the website that Mr. Monahan flagged earlier. It is literally at@byers.com, and you could find that survey there. Secondly, there's the Growing Together at Byers, formerly Flight of the Falcons. And this is where the majority of our fundraising comes from for clubs, extracurricular activities. And we also understand that in a time of COVID and potentially job loss and all types of situations, we know and are very well aware that financial support may not be the route for all of our families, and that is completely okay and valued and respected on our campus. We also have our science and tech parent group, and every single parent and guardian is welcome to join this group. That group currently is working to create a regional community group that allows families across our big city of Denver that have students at Byers to connect with one another regionally. And also we are working in that STP to create a Leading Your Learner support group, which will help families try to figure out, just like we are on a daily basis, how to help our students learn successfully from home. And then the last piece is our +1. And really, when we think about +1, yes, I spoke about some of the financial opportunities to support early on with our Growing Together at Byers. But we think about +1 as, can you donate time? Can you donate your feedback to us to allow us to really make decisions that are going to meet the needs of all of our students on campus? And same thing here, Mr. Monahan, if you just want to click through all of them, that would be great. In large part, as these pop up here, I think the big takeaways are, we're going to base our decision on our in-person return 100% on the science. So we're not going to make a unilateral decision. We're going to await the guidance of DSST, and our CEO, Bill Kurtz, has been sending communications to families and our staff. And that is where you're going to find the most up-to-date information on any given day. The most recent email from Bill Kurtz and from DSST. I will say, when we think about DPS policy, DPS decisions and policy will definitely inform our decision to return, but it will not decide our decision to return. So we will follow the policy and the guidance of DSST as a network, and look out for continued communications from Bill Kurtz. One thing I would like to say, hopefully to calm some nerves here, is we know that there will be choices when we think about in-person return. We're not 1,000% sure exactly what those choices will look like, but we do know that there will at least be a choice for remote and in-person options if we do make an in-person return. The last plug here, please, please, please fill out surveys to help us plan. Heather Lamb from the Home Office recently sent out another survey to families to ask what your preference is as we think about returning to in-person learning. And I would really ask that all families take time to complete that survey.
Thank you, Mr. Menduk. And I'll be facilitating us through how to be successful in 8th grade regarding these 4 components: college prep, our common classroom expectations, technology and applications, and practice, participation, and assessment. So college prep is an academic intervention for the folks who are new to Byers. And what's new and now in the year 2021? Obviously, there's no room or time or space assigned as a result of earning a college prep. Teachers are going to only assign college prep for missing work. Family notifications will be 1 time a week, Friday afternoons. And Google Classroom and Flyer will give access to guardians to have even more transparency for their students' work completion. And advisories have uniquely created their own accountability follow-ups, and that will vary. Typically, it will look something like the advisor asking the advisee to just notifying that they have a college prep, the advisee then following up with the teacher who assigned the college prep, and asking the advisee to just like own that and say, this is why it was not turned in, this is when I will turn it in. And you can follow up with advisors in particular for their approach to college prep. Really good question in the chat. We will come back to that during our Q&A. So why do we even have college prep in eSchool? If your student missed an assignment, turning in an assignment by accident, this clearly informs them that it's missing. Completing assignments is essential to learning and students earning the best grade that they can. Missing assignments can be completed, and it communicates to a student's advisor and the family that they might need some support. So it's still a very essential academic intervention. I'm going to be guiding through our common classroom expectations. And I'll go ahead and I'm going to drop a link to the full list of common classroom expectations. You can find this list on our website by looking under current families and then the common classroom expectations. And there is that link. I'm only going to be focusing on 4 of our 10 expectations: use of camera, use of teams, time and urgency, and communicating personal needs. Here is an image of the 8th grade team in the early days before students were even here. This is kind of like the new norm. This is the way we kind of show up for work. This is the way we learn. And we recognize that the camera doesn't need to be on all the time. So we ask for it to be on when students enter class and when a teacher requests it. And we're really intentional about when the camera on is being asked for. And furthermore, students can always communicate directly to the teacher if they don't feel comfortable being on camera for any reason on any day. We just ask that they call the shot for that. We use Teams, as you are right now, to experience classes. And we ask that students arrive muted, and then they unmute themselves as directed by the instructor so that it doesn't clog up the sound. We ask that students use chat and do not use chat as directed by the instructor so that important notes and engagement pieces are clearly documented. Obviously, we rely on our core values of respect and responsibility by using the chat. We use the hand raise feature to help show who has their hand raised, because as you saw earlier, you can't see every single person in the chat, but when the hand is raised, you can see who raised first, and you can see a whole list of people who did. And then we ask that students also use Teams to appropriately direct message for personal needs rather than putting into the chat that I got to use it. Not everything needs to be in the whole group chat. Here's some examples of what these things look like on the screen that you're working on right now. So this is to mute and unmute oneself. This is to leave comments in the chat. You can also use this here to see the participants in the chat, but this is your hand raise feature. It's great that you get to use emojis, and if you've been keeping your eye on the chat, you've seen a lot of reactions happening. And not only does Microsoft Teams have its own emojis, but you can access all of the emojis you know and love from the world famous movie, the Emoji Movie, and also on your phone. Especially cool, you can use the range of complexions that are available. Another great question in the chat, and we will be answering that during Q&A. Next, common classroom expectation is for time and urgency. So parents and guardians, we ask that you just ensure that Falcons are on time for each class, that they're ready to learn, and that they have their supplies ready. And finally, the last expectation that we'll be speaking to today is just calling one's shot, is what we say. Basically letting somebody know if you need to take a quick bio break to use the restroom or get a drink of water, or if you need to step away because you have a massive headache because you've been looking at a screen all day. We are extremely flexible with students and their guardians. We just love it when you ask questions. So please, we encourage students to direct message teachers, especially when they're showing up tardy to class. This is a kind of an ongoing thing right now. That students directly message teachers when they need to. And then for parents and guardians, calling your shot kind of looks like using the buyer's MS attendance line. If you know that there's going to be an absence, the phone number is down below, the email address is also down below. We are absolutely flexible with students when they communicate. So some questions to ask your scholar to make sure that they're following the common classroom expectations. Did your teacher ask you to turn on your camera today? What sorts of things did you add to your class's chat today? Were you on time? If not, did you message your teacher to let them know? Did you find some time to step away from the screen today? And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Ms. Ann Solsky, who will guide us through some of our tech platforms.
Hi, everyone. The way I've organized this tech slide is kind of looking at the different subject areas that exist and the different platforms that you can expect your student to be using for a certain class. For example, all classes use Teams, And in Microsoft Teams, that's where students come to class, they chat, they turn on their cameras. All grades get input into Infinite Campus that you can access through Parent Portal. Anytime a student is wondering, can I improve my grade? The next step should be, let's look at the grade book together. If you look at the overview of a student's grade book has just their letter grades, A, B, C+, B, A-. If you click on a particular class, it'll open up all of those assignments. And if you look at those assignments, if you click on a particular assignment, you can see a note associated with that assignment that will often direct you for what you should do. If there's a test correction to complete, if there is an opportunity to finish the classwork and resubmit for a regrade. Infinite Campus is really the nuts and bolts of students' grades and students' next steps. Google Classroom is students' classwork hub. That's where teachers are posting all of the student work and the descriptions of what the work looks like for the day, as well as making sure that students understand what their homework is, when due dates are. All student assessments, or the majority of student assessments, will happen on the platform EdgeElastic. Interactive lessons through Pear Deck, it's an interactive platform that students and teachers can use. That's used in social studies, science, and math class. And computer science uses the coding website is it code.org or code.com? I can't remember.
Code.org.
Code.org. And so that's kind of like the nuts and bolts of tech platforms. So if you're a parent, I would say the main place that you need to be looking is Infinite Campus. And if you want to see your students' classwork, have them show it to you in Google Classroom. Those are kind of the nuts and bolts, your two main hubs. Are there any other questions? If you have a question about technology or anything, put it in the chat and I'll make sure to get an answer to you in the Q&A section.
With that, we'll pass it to Mr. Jordan Weatherall, who will guide us through practice and participation.
Hello, hello. I am Jordan Weatherall once again, and I'd love to be able to speak about what practice and participation looks like this year. So first of all, I think it's really important for us to be able to define what even is practice and participation. Practice and participation is basically our expectations for what gets graded in class. A lot of what actually goes into the grade book that ends up making your scholar's grade for that class. There are a few different things that I want to say about practice and participation at Byers. We have an extremely high expectation for every single one of our learners, and we make sure that we are going to provide the best opportunity and environment for our learners to be able to reach those high expectations, because we know every student can achieve academic excellence. The other thing too is that we account for technology and life happening. We understand that students have tech issues and we have tech issues, and as long as those things are communicated to teachers and to the appropriate parties like Byers attendance, then we can absolutely account for when life gets in the way of learning. And so the next thing that I want to bring up is that a part of the score is class participation, but not necessarily all of it, right? There are other parts to practice and participation besides speaking or chatting in a class. So please email any teachers with any specific issues that you're having whenever it comes to grades, and we'll see and we'll definitely work with you and try to get that figured out. Mr. Monahan, awesome, thank you. So basically there are two different ways that practice and participation is being handled. And one is objective driven, and one is weekly task driven. So objective driven is more of a daily view on practice and participation. So there are going to be daily objectives in that class that require your student to be able to annotate and answer questions. That could be in real time, and it could be on the sheet that they submit for that day. So if they answer all questions at a high level, they will get 100% for that day. And if they finish most of the work, then they should get about an 80%, along with some feedback about how they did that day, what brought their score down a little bit, what might be missing, and no work goes in as missing in the gradebook. So for instance, Mr. Leva in social studies runs his class with an objective-driven view of practice and participation, whereas Mrs. Anderson takes a weekly task perspective on practice and participation in her 8th grade math class. That essentially means that 2 to 3 tasks a week, and we use Google Docs and Pear Decks for that class, go into the gradebook. So Mrs. Anderson chooses 2 to 3 classes and class periods where that Google Doc and that Pear Deck, the activity that happens in the Pear Deck, goes in as the grade for that day. Completed at a high level, once again, 100%. And for each question that's missed or unanswered, they can lose 5 to 10% on their grade, with a floor, as in a minimum, of 50%. Also, mastery checks at the end of class are averaged to create 1 participation score for the week. So there are a couple different questions that you can ask your student in order to be able to check in and to see how they're doing in their class and what their practice and participation really looks like. So a few questions that you might ask. Can I see what you annotated in ELA? Tell me about a question you answered in class today. Did you answer any questions incorrectly on your assignment? How did your mastery check in math go? What was Mr. Leva's historical question for today? And most importantly, and I see there's a question in the chat too about submitting classwork in Google Classroom and Pear Deck. And I can't wait to get to that question, especially during question and answer. There is also a link to every teacher's specific practice and participation guidelines. And there's a lot of overlap, but we're going to send that in the chat in just a bit, just in case you wanted to get down into the nitty-gritty in each specific class. And that is what I have.
Thank you, Mr. Weatherall. And before we get to our Q&A, I wanted to let families know that we will be having affinity groups, and they will be starting in mid-October. As you can see, we have a BSA, Latinx Club, Asian Pacific Islander Association, Women's Forum, Gay Straight Alliance, Muslim Student Association, and Jewish Cultural Club. If you are interested in, we're also looking for parents to facilitate these groups, and we're looking for those that identify with the affinity group that they'd be moderating. Please connect with Miss Annika Selenoff. Her email is below, and I will drop it in the chat as well. She's a 7th grade science instructor, and some of you may in fact have known her from the past. And we will additionally be hosting some different interest groups. So we got a Harry Potter club, you can see, poetry club, art club, anime club, gotcha club, music exploration, and board games. These are getting built out as teachers are finding the time to sponsor them and as students are finding the interest for them. With that, we will head into our Q&A section. And I'm going to ask that all the teachers and staff in the call feel free to jump in. But I'm gonna go ahead and just open up our. I'm gonna start sharing the parking lot, the question parking lot, and from there we'll just kind of go down the line of the questions. So the first question from the parent or guardian of Sebastian Gutierrez. How are you differentiating the anti-racist work for students of color who live through racism and trauma daily? Thanks so much for that question. There's a couple answers in the side here, but I think it's really important to know that we do separate those things, that students who are in affinity groups will have a safe space to be around those who experience the same, who have the same lived experiences. And furthermore, we are surveying all families to learn about their experiences. Families will have the opportunity to schedule one-on-one meetings with a staff member to share their experiences. Family voices will drive and shape this work. I know Ms. Ann Sulsky is very much involved with the equity work. And Ms. Sulsky, if you'd like to speak to, I think you might have typed up those responses. Anything else you want to add?
I just want to add, please take the survey. And if you'd like to schedule a one-on-one meeting, that would be so helpful. I think we're starting with anti-racist work from a place of listening and storytelling. We believe that by deep listening, we can understand the approach that we need to take. And we want to listen to all students and all families to understand experiences and stories, hopes, dreams, missed opportunities. And so please take the survey. Also, if there is something that is missing from this approach to ideally differentiating anti-racist work in a way that is appropriate and meaningful, please let us know. We want to hear what we're missing and how we can improve, because we want to get it right. We don't want to be right.
Just to kind of piggyback off of the idea of trauma-informed instruction, which is kind of a lens we look through in advisory and in classrooms this year. We give a wellness survey out every week in advisory as individual advisories, but we also have a home office survey that just checks on wellness of students, that provides some opportunities for one-on-one check-ins with advisors and teachers through students. We also, in advisory, teach social emotional learning skills. We'll be launching into a lesson on the love languages, and that's not in the romantic way, interest of love, but in the definition that deals with kindness and compassion in the coming weeks to help students kind of explore their own sort of experiences and emotions. The next question is, how is attendance being backdated for students that enter a classroom after attendance is taken? Another excellent question. This comes back to making sure students are calling their shot when they come into class. Teachers have gotten really good at taking attendance right away and occasionally checking and double checking rosters after a class is over. But we really need our students to direct message or put it in the whole group chat. I'm sorry I was late. Let us know why. So we can take care of those attendance issues before you end up getting that annoying phone call that just about every parent is getting right now. And of course, there's our hotline and email address. Can an assignment be resubmitted if you are unhappy with your grade? I'd love to defer to a teacher in this situation, so please go ahead and come off mute if you want to answer that.
I can answer that. For social studies, you can submit any class. You will not lose any classwork. You will not lose any points. Just resubmit and send me an email and say, hey, Mr. Leiva, I resubmitted my work. And I usually grade it within 24 hours and I update the gradebook. You can always do that, and you can always do test corrections for my class. So for example, in my class, I usually use a form. So if you need to do test corrections for my class, you just need to talk to me and I will send the form to me in order for my students to do test corrections for social studies.
And I'll just hop in real quick for computer programming or digital arts. That is almost identical to my policy.
The only thing I want to add is that the clearer students are in their communication, the easier it is for us to regrade. If a student says, I completed my missing work, I don't know what the missing work is. But if you say, I completed missing work from 9-4 and here's the link, I can update your grade so fast because it's right there. So meet us halfway, clearly communicate with us, and we can get grades updated.
One of the things we said in our math class this last week about submitting late work is it's super clear also, like adding a snip of whatever it is. But if you could have your student email it, a lot of times the chat gets like overpopulated. And so and then I also told them to just be flexible. I only grade once a week just so I can just truly focus on mastery checks and data and reflection. And so just know that like we are updating it like at least once a week, if not more, but to just be a little patient. Give us like 1 week to update the grade book if once that email comes through.
Yeah, I want to speak as a representative of the science team here, pretty much echoing everything everybody else has already said. But also just keep in mind, students that are listening here and parents as well, teachers want to say yes. Just make it easy for the teachers to say yes by being really specific and being really proactive about communication.
Thank you very much, teachers. Does makeup work need to be opened, or can students just go into student portal and resubmit work? Again, I could defer to a teacher to just verbally answer that question. Thanks, Mr. Millman.
Yeah, I could just briefly speak about this. It honestly really depends on the assignment. I'm imagining that this student might be trying to work on a mastery check or work on a quiz that has been closed. So yes, things in Edulastic often have a hard due date, and they need to be reopened at a later time for students to complete them late. But as far as I know, classroom materials, at least in science, classroom materials can be accessed way after the class. The student just once again needs to let the teacher know that they completed it via email.
If I can add one thing that parents and students should know. So what's happening is that, especially for like my class, a lot of students are doing the work. Either something happens with their computer and then they have to go to their next class. And then what's happening is that they submit their work, but it's not completed. So one thing that you need to know is that please make sure that you check your work before you submit it. And if you submit it and you receive a 50 score, you can, especially for social studies, you can unsubmit your work, complete your work, and like I said, send me an email saying, Mr. Leyva, this has been taken care of. But again, any communication that you do with us, we'll be more than happy to help you out.
Thank you for all that. Maybe piggyback off that. Child states they don't know how to do test corrections in remote learning. Can anybody just guide through an answer about test corrections?
Yeah, I'll tackle this to start. I think it's likely that they don't know how to because we've just only started doing tests and perhaps it hasn't been rolled out in every class. The short answer is test corrections exist or retake opportunity exists for every class. And we do that up to 90%. So if a student gets a 90% on a test or a quiz, we're not offering retake policies. And students can earn up back to 50% of their points through test corrections. In literacy, we just had our first big formative, and the document to do test corrections for literacy is in Google Classroom. They just need to complete it and then send the teacher an email, and then that would be their test correction.
Mr. Menduke, I see your hand.
Yeah, so the test corrections policy is quite long, so I snipped a piece of it and put it in the Q&A parking lot. In short, I would love to share a little bit about the process of how we got to this point. In the spring, we started work on a test corrections policy. In the fall, our instructional leadership team came back to it, made some adjustments that we thought would be appropriate for a remote setting. And then we sent it out to teachers to get feedback since our teachers are with our students most often. Currently, the middle school corrections policy as stands is in this Q&A doc, and Mr. Monahan has it presented there. There's a really good caveat there from Ms. Solsky that, you know, the process of test corrections will more than likely look different teacher by teacher. These guidelines here that I pasted are more so guidelines for the minimum or like the low bar for test corrections. So for instance, there may be a teacher that decides to give a little bit more credit based off of any given circumstance. We've built these with flexibility in mind. The last thing I'll say about this is that this Thursday, our ILT will be reviewing our teacher recommendations and then finalizing our test corrections policy and rolling that, excuse me, rolling that out to staff and families once that is completely finalized. So to Ms. Solsky's point, we really just started giving assessments in the last week or so, and we wanted to make sure that we got this right and took the time to get the appropriate feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Menduk. Is Circle offered in 8th grade? No, not currently, but it is planned to be rolled out next year in the 8th grade. It's an absolutely transformational process for students and staff, and we want to make sure that we're doing it right and not and in doing that slowly. To follow up on Circle, the current 8th graders will end up being missed by the time that is utilized by high school. They will be headed to college, possibly need to consider how to capture the entire population, understanding that's a process. Yes, I see somebody responded, and I was wondering if they would want to just go ahead and verbalize their response there.
Yeah, I responded to both Circle questions. You know, Circle is a really powerful and transformational process for a lot of our students. Last year, we piloted it in 6th grade. We're moving into 7th grade for this year. You know, while it is powerful, it also has, you know, the possibility to, when not executed purposefully and with fidelity, to potentially cause some harm. So it's really important that we train our staff in a way that's super appropriate and really diligent. And that, in large part, is why we decided to do a slow build, where we spent a ton of time last year training our 6th grade staff. We'll spend a ton of time this year training our 7th grade staff, more than likely next year moving on to our 8th grade team. But I also linked there Katie Etheridge, who is our 6th grade Dean of Students and our campus Circle owner. You could definitely reach out to her with any questions about the long-term vision and process for Circle at Byers.
Thank you, Mr. Menduk. It sounds like we're working on this last question, and we have less than a minute here. If you asked that question and you want it answered verbally, if you can just go ahead and wait, and we will answer that question for you. But for the rest of our Falcon families, thank you so much for sticking around with us and getting to know us a little bit. This recording will be I will message this out in our flyer message. And I will also be providing all the resources that we have in the chat from our parking lot to all the links that we've provided. With that, wish you a wonderful evening. If anybody wants to come off mute and say goodbye, we're here for you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, it's very slow. Come on.
Adios.
Yeah, that's still going.
Okay, so the question that we had was regarding testing and homework.
There we go.
Note that we have 2 Falcons. And
No, it's just, the thing was going off and on very slowly, so it was.
I could just ask real quick for all participants to be muted to make sure that we can clearly hear the answer. Regarding testing, we have 2 Falcons. We've seen that there are tech challenges with submissions. Will the policy consider these issues? Mr. Menduk, I'm wondering if you could answer, since that kind of falls in your realm. You're still on with us?
So this is Mrs. Sparks speaking. I filled in an answer to that, but I'm seeing more of the testing and homework piece of that. I thought that it was an assignment. So if it's an assignment and your student has a tech issue, please let us know. If we marked the assignment as missing, but you truly couldn't get to class and we just may have forgotten, there were a lot of tech issues the first couple weeks, just send us an email to remind us. As far as testing and homework, though, I think there should not be much homework other than reading class. So I don't know if Ms. Selsky, you can help answer that one.
The first book that we used this year had a PDF version. The next book that we'll be using is there's a paper copy of the version that was available for pickup. And so all literacy homework moving forward will be paper homework.
What do you mean by all literacy homework was going to be paper?
Matus, were you able to go to the materials pickup to get the science materials and the literacy materials?
Was the literacy materials like what's it called, what were the literacy materials? Because I did go to get the materials.
It was one copy of the book To Kill a Mockingbird.
What else after I got the Killing Mockingbird? Is it like construction paper also?
And then everything else is science materials, because we're going to be reading To Kill a Mockingbird through November, and then we're going to be reading short stories, and those will be available through your computer.
Okay, because I was confused because you said you said something about homework on paper.
Oh, I just meant like a physical copy rather than having to read a PDF.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good clarifying question.
And if there's anybody else, folks, parents, guardians still in the chat, we do have an exit ticket that I completely failed to post before everybody left. So if you're here and you are interested, we have a survey to let us know what you know and to let us know if you have any other questions. There will be a follow-up. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close us out. I'm going to stop the recording and wish everybody a wonderful evening. Take care and thank you all so much.
Good night.